I will stop you mid-pee to tell you to go get your socks off the living room table because I have already asked and you know they're not supposed to be there and I'm not doing it anymore. Welcome to Not Right Now, the podcast about parenting through all of this. Hey, it's Quinn. Welcome to another Not Right Now. We never welcome you and I want you to feel welcome. We have a guest today. Her name is Kaitlyn Teer. She's a mom, obviously, and she's the author of the brand new book, an essay collection called Little Apocalypses, Essays on Motherhood, Climate Change, and Hope at the End of the World. Kaitlyn is awesome. She is the senior editor of Cup of Joe, where she has interviewed folks like Roxane Gay, amazing, Barbara Kingsolver, amazing, and Jana Miller, amazing. Her essays have appeared in Orion and Catapult and Electric Lit and Prairie Schooner, and she has taught writing at Western Washington University, where she lives in Washington State with her hubby and her two kids. She loves gardening and secondhand fashion and all of that fun stuff. We talked about parenting and all the bullshit we put on moms and climate change. We made fun of me. We made fun of Claire. It's one of those episodes you'll love, hopefully. As usual, send feedbacks, all that stuff to questions@notrightnow.show. Please leave us a review or something and tell a friend, because if we need this, you need it and I need it, all the parents need it. Thanks for listening. I wish it was relegated to just days when emotions are running high, but it's every day.
I'm still in the phase of parenting where like emotions are based on food consumption.
That doesn't
I am
change,
too.
P.S. It just becomes also other things, but it's still food.
Our younger son yesterday did not eat enough. I don't know if you've seen those memes about how the first day of school, the parent makes the lunch and it's like this beautiful bento box. And then the last day of school, it's like whatever you found in the compost bin. And that was my younger son's lunch yesterday. It was Uncrustable, which I know is like the dumbest food ever, but we had them, and some Pirate's Booty and one baby carrot and some freeze-dried mango. And I think he ate the Uncrustable and the carrot. So he gets mad when he's hungry. So
that is better than the new food pyramid. One carrot.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
He ate the carrot and he ate the mango. As always, he's going to poop. That's the main goal. But Steve was like, he was such an asshole and he was so mean, and there was no getting through it. So,
I have showed my kids the old Snickers commercials, the hangry ones, particularly the Betty White one, which is fantastic. I'm like, it's real. You shouldn't solve it with a Snickers bar, but it's real. It happens to everyone. So if you could just listen to me when I tell you to eat your lunch.
But we tried so hard to listen to your body language. They turn it around on us.
Mm-hmm.
Just last night, my 4-year-old was like, my body wants another juice box.
Mm-hmm. They will manipulate anything.
Your body also wants to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. We've also come across this thing with like independence is great, and we all want to foster independence in our children, right? Nobody wants a helicopter parent or a kid who doesn't know how to get around on their own. But in our case, that manifests in our kids going to buy themselves food at the gas station often. Did you know that Faygo makes a bubblegum flavored pop? I know because my son brought home a 1-liter bottle of it. And, they're eating huge bags of candy, like cotton candy as a serving, and like going to McDonald's for lunch. And I have to choose my battles, but also we are just dismayed about like the chemical, the choices, but
I know, and I think you kind of disagree, but I feel like we've talked about this before. And Kayla, I know you've talked about, authoritative parenting, authoritarian, like the whole thing. I have a baseline set. First of all, helicopter parenting, so exhausting. I'm not interested. I have only so much energy. But 2, I just start with a blankets, like a constitution full of no's, and everything about that, I don't care. No, we're not buying that shit. You can buy anything else. But we're not buying that. Sorry. I have found that is easier. Process of elimination. I'm just like, we're not that family. Sorry, I don't know what to tell you.
It's helpful for them to know where the boundaries
But
are.
what do you do, though, when they're like on their own? They're riding their bike around and they go to 7-Eleven by themselves. Are you
out of sight, out of mind? Truly, good luck. But also, like, how are you paying for it?
Yeah. Well, my kids end up getting cash. They have relatives who give them cash for no reason. So they have cash all the time for this kind of stuff.
That shit's going to happen. That is not my problem. Are you affecting others? Are you dealing Coke in the movie theater? No. If you're just crushing M&Ms, I don't care. But you don't.
Also,
you-
in that
what?
case,
Remember my rule
I
though.
feel like
You don't get to be a dick when you come home because you're crashing on M&Ms. That's it.
I like that.
So what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was gonna say, I feel like in that case, the independence is the big win. Like they're out riding their
Yeah.
bike. Like that's the win. Everything
Yeah,
else
that's
is-
what I tell myself. It has been nice. Here's been something I've discovered this week, and we will, Kaitlyn, talk about your book and things about you. We always dive in with just whatever top of mind. But I'm sure you've heard or read about these pines to the free summer, unstructured summers, let children roam. I have realized parents who have kids who are younger than a certain age should not listen to that at all, because it is way different when you don't have to supervise it. Because now that my kid, and it's only for a week too, that's the other thing I think, but as long as they can maintain their own freedom and you don't have to make their freedom for them and check in and make sure they've eaten or provide, that should be their freedom, not necessarily your freedom. And that I get it now. And it's nice because I'm not in charge of it and they're bored on their own.
Yeah. So tell me more about free summer, because I don't even think I'm in that phase of parenting yet, because my kids are 7 and 4. So
Which it's not applicable to because they'll die.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In
Right.
any given situation. My son used to like eye contact as he put his fingers into the electrical socket, like on purpose. And now I'm like, good luck. I've told you not to 400 times. Enjoy your independence. Yeah, Claire's right. Everyone's like, we grew up in the 90s. No one knew where we were. It's like, not when you're 4. I mean, maybe my parents didn't give a shit, but not applicable yet. But now it is.
Yeah.
It is as much as we can do that.
Yeah, I feel, I mean, as you talk about in your book, by the way, you are a part, first of all, beautiful cover. And I also want
Wow,
to say,
well
Kaitlyn,
done,
you have
Claire.
you have the most beautiful hair in the game. I don't know how you do it, but you really have gorgeous hair. I was in the middle of going to get the book and I was walking down the stairs and I was like, what am I doing? And then I was like, I have a goal and it's to get Kaitlyn's book. But, the mom guilt of it all will let you know that whatever you're doing wrong, right? And one version of that is if your kid is too overscheduled in the summer, that's so sad because they're not learning how to have freedom and, flip and slide in the backyard and riding your bike around and device free and all that kind of stuff. And I just have learned my kids need to be busy. They need to be busy. They need to be tired. The tiredness makes them sleep. The tiredness makes them eat. They're not intelligent enough to fulfill long stretches of time. Like yesterday, my older son, I think they were starting to run out of things to do. So they were starting to create recipes in the kitchen, like Frankenfoods. And I knew that because there's Nutella smeared everywhere. And I was like, yeah, I'm glad we're going to Frisbee camp next week. That's important. But like when your kids get older, you may encounter that. But also, I feel like we'll talk more about this, but you have that built into your life, I think, a lot already with your kids, like with your garden and the beach cleanups and stuff you guys do. But just beware. There'll always be someone telling you you're bad for having your kid signed up to do a thing.
I feel like that's been true about every stage of parenting and every parenting decision. There's someone ready to tell you you're doing it wrong. And even in the realm of advice that's meant to take the pressure off of parents, a lot of times critiques of intensive parenting just come off as, well, the goals are still the same for you and your kids, but just try to do it with less effort. Can you be less high maintenance about it?
Yeah, and that's a really good point. And I saw someone somewhere, like a good quote, and of course I won't track it down, but someone somewhere said, I'm raising a person, I'm not designing them. And that I need to keep that in mind because my kids they're not the product of my efforts. My efforts are unrelated sometimes to what I put out there, but you get, if you get them down the wrong track, method wise, you think it is because of me that I did do something wrong that, my kid screamed that he hated me the other day ago. And I'm like, it's because of these choices, not because he's his own person and he's having a bad moment and all these things led up to it. So I definitely need to remind myself of that sometimes because I get very control oriented and think, well, it's because I hit him in the head when he was a baby by accident and I caused the brain damage that made him behave.
100%. I threw Oliver into a fan when he was like 6 months old, a moving fan. And Dana was like, he's fine. You cried for 3 days. But I still, whenever he fucks up, I'm like, it was the fan. I knew it. I think the whole thing is, you've heard like the barbell approach, which is, can you fuck your kids up? 1,000%. Can you make great choices for them? 1,000%. Most of it's in between. They're going to be who they are and like you can guide them. But, Claire, like I know your boys are like similar, but they come out and you're like, those are different people. I don't understand how I thought I was going to get 2 copies of this. They're who they are. And your job is, again, here's some guardrails, but I don't know, man. Best wishes.
Yeah.
One
No,
of my
no.
favorite parenting books is the Alison Gopnik book, The Gardener and the Carpenter. And she kind of offers an alternative to helicopter parenting, or what sometimes is called hothouse parenting, like in the greenhouse sense of the word. And she is like, think about making a meadow, not like a carefully designed garden. She's a little more take the chaos gardening approach. Just throw some seeds around, make sure you're watering, and just kind of let it happen. And I love that. She also she thinks parenting books are a terrible invention, which I tend to agree with.
So I want to dive into talking about your book a little bit, and I want to get a little bit more meta also just about where you are in terms of the promotion and thinking about it now that it's been out in the world. But like, you have done so much research for this book, and you talk, I mean, when I read your writing, you pull in so many references, and I'm just curious what your time management is for doing all this work and all this reading and finding the good things to pull from them, and not feeling overwhelmed or feeling compelled to quote things just because I researched them. Just tell me a little bit about how you're raising these beautiful kids, planting your garden, working on the newsletter, and then also taking in all this research.
Yeah. So the book writing process took about a year. But since it's an essay collection, some of those essays I had started writing, when my daughter, who is now 7, was just several months old. And it was what was mine to write at that time. These were the questions that I was wrestling with. And so the research has, kind of happened just as part of my life over these last 7 to 8 years. And even really before that, before becoming a parent, I was teaching college writing and focusing on environmental literature and nature writing. And so looking back, the research really pulls from the last 10 years of just what I personally have been interested in and obsessed with. But then in terms of the day-to-day, it helps that my work with Cup of Joe and Big Salad is part-time. And so I can kind of clock in, clock out. Some weeks I was able to, while my kids were in childcare and at school, have long blocks of time to write, which is
Seems
nice.
crazy.
I also have always been like a wake up early person in college. I could
Mhm.
never pull an all-nighter. I would rather set my alarm at 3 a.m. and wake up. And so I don't do that now, but it's not unusual for me to wake up at 4 or 5 to start work and try to fit some in before my kids wake up, which is always the trick.
Well, that's the Toni
That's really
Morrison trick.
impressive.
I did that for varying working and working out when my kids were younger. And
Yeah.
now they're, how are my kids, Claire? 11, 12, 13, something like that. I haven't been able to figure out why the past couple of years I can't do it. And I realized because they fuck around in the kitchen till 9:30 at night now. And I'm like, oh no, I need my sleep. Before I gave them a bottle and they were out at 6:15, like sun shining through the windows.
Oh, yeah.
It's the whole thing of your kids are going to wake up when they're going to wake up. You control what time they go to bed or what time you go to bed. And I understand the needing night owl time, people like that. My buddy does that. But those hours in the morning are amazing and I miss them. So
Oh, yeah.
stick with it as long as you can, because eventually they're just making
Yeah.
snacks and slamming the microwave closed.
I believe it.
When I stopped drinking, the book that I read that helped me or led me to quit drinking sort of had you orient your morning time basically, and had you they one of the prompts was like, how would you spend your morning, like your first hours or your first hour, whatever it is, like if no one, if you were completely free. And I was like, that's going to be my reading time now, because I'm not guaranteed to have it at night. And so I do that now. And also I think my body clock has changed since I still struggle with that because I'm not good at getting up and like being productive. I would love to. I feel like sometimes I wake up more around 4 p.m. and I used to feel more guilty about that because that's when the kids would come home and I felt like I should be like, hi, I'm home, for all the hugs and kisses. And Quinn, I know your kids greet you exactly the same way when they're home. They've been like, Daddy, I missed you so much.
If
Let me tell
I'm
you all
there
about
when
my
they
day.
get home, they're just like, God damn it. This is like the last person. I was like, I used to come home and now they roll in. They're like, oh, he's just in between me and my iPad. That's it. That is, I got to get past this guy.
And I remember when my dad used to be like, how was your day at school? And I'd say, fine. And for some reason the kids are the same way, even though it's mean. And obviously they should talk to me. So I'm trying to get over my ideal of like how I should use my time management. But that is like a writing ideal, is to get up and get your words done. And I admire you, Kaitlyn, that you can still make that happen. But tell me how you are doing. For my friends who are parents and writers, I say book writing is very much like parenting, in that you put in all this work and hard and love and heartache at times, and then it goes out in the world and it's sort of independent of you. You might have some good luck, but also you can spin your wheels promoting the hell out of it or not. And it's sort of like let go and let God. And so I'm just curious where you are right now and how you've been feeling about it and what is coming up for you promotion wise.
I think it has been something I was really scared of, promoting it. I was just like, it's so public and I don't know, you're talking to so many people. And it's actually been really joyful and kind of meaningful to hear from other people who feel similarly or who felt kind of alone in connecting the dots between climate anxiety and postpartum anxiety and parent guilt and climate guilt. And so I have found it to be a lot more nourishing than I thought it would be. And it's also just very interesting to be on the other side of things, because I feel like in my role at Cup of Joe and Big Salad, I'm always the one asking the questions and doing the book tour interviews. And so it's a little strange to find myself like, oh, this is what it feels like. But for the most part, it's been really, really rewarding.
That's great. That's very cool. Yeah, the climate anxiety of it all, it's nice to read something and have something in your hands that talks about collaboration and hope and not just feeling bad that, sorry, kids, sorry we gave birth to you right in time for all this, as we say at Not Right Now. And yeah, I wonder if your kids maintain that same optimism that you have, or if you have worry wart kind of kids.
I think they're coming into their own as worrywart. They are my kids, after all. They do have a tendency to ask sort of the big, dark questions, but they're also still just 7 and 4. And so their grasp of the future, even just as a concept, is still kind of limited.
Oh, yeah.
But like the other day, I was listening from the other room as my kids were having their own conversation together about climate change.
Oh,
and
boy.
my 7-year-old was telling my 4-year-old, she was like, yeah, the earth is heating up. And when it gets hot enough, the dinosaurs are going to come back.
Wouldn't that be fucking great, though? Incredible.
That's
awesome.
amazing. I love that, though. I think that's actually, why not?
God, what if? God, I would quit this job in a heartbeat if that was the end game.
Yeah, but then they also have, feel like thinking about like the future of the planet sort of tracks with big questions about life and birth and death. And they're also kind of new to those conversations too. And they can be like very emotional about it sometimes. But when are you going to die? But then they can also be so weirdly, like creepily matter of fact about it sometimes too, in the way kids can be, like my daughter has been like, oh, when you die, can I have that bracelet?
Oh, yeah. No, they're
yeah,
ruthless.
Sure, no problem. And then like we have a senior dog who's about to turn, we think like 15. And so they're telling everybody, like we'll be out and about and they'll be like, oh, our dog's about to turn 100. She's going to die soon. And then you just watch people like they're like, we don't even know you. Why are you? And now I'm talking about death with a 4-year-old. So
I think that's great, though. First of all, I can't get over this dinosaur thing. Like they're going to come back to reclaim their fuels, that we've woken them up and they need to come back. But I mean, I think, yeah, I love that. My kids like don't talk about it that much, which I guess is a relief, because when I was a kid, I was hyper focused on end of the world type stuff. And maybe it was kind of the monoculture where we would watch TV at whatever it was, 10 o'clock news. And they would be like, you talk about the doomsday clock, which terrified me when I was a kid, because it was always like 30 seconds to midnight, Yeah. And so I'm terrified about that. And then because it was the monoculture, they'd be like, there's a cult that believes the end of the world is tomorrow. And I would be freaking out thinking like, what if they're right? What do they know? And my parents would
Yeah.
joke about it with my brother, like, well, nice knowing you. And I was mad at them for taking that, like not taking it seriously enough. I don't know what they would have done, but my kids, and then even with our dog, Quinn knows how obsessed I am with my dog. I'm like, well, I'm going to lose my mind when he dies. So we're getting another dog in a couple of weeks to buffer that in advance.
Sure.
But they seem so carefree that it's almost concerning that they don't seem to think about death that much. But I'm kind of relieved because I'm highly unqualified to discuss that. Quinn, did you think about that stuff a lot when you were a kid?
Not too much. I mean, I think it was a lot of, fist in the air, we're gonna live forever type of thing, But at the same time, like I'm like the standby me generation. It's like you want to see a dead body. Like shit was real.
Oh God.
So, talk about independence. 100%. Yeah, I don't know. We've had a bunch of dogs. We've had a couple dogs die. We haven't had any grandparents go yet, but we talk about that. My kids' grandparents, not mine. We talk about that. One of the kids in my oldest class died very suddenly a couple years ago, and that was interesting. Just
Yeah.
I think it was like that can happen realization, which is not something they encounter every day, and in part because I don't want to say they're intentionally sheltered, but obviously they're not privy to like Gaza as much, or my kids were your kids' age during COVID, and I didn't show them the New York Times page. It's like 100,000 people dead, nor that it then was, 15x that eventually. Because one, they can't process those numbers in any capacity at that age. They barely know they have hands, and two, because one thing at a time, but we do try to talk about it. And we were in Los Angeles for a lot of that time where they would see homeless people everywhere because they refused to build housing, so I think there's a procedure to it. I don't know that we are doing it anywhere near correctly, but the short answer is I think they're more aware of it than I was, at least. Let me put it that way.
Kaitlyn, I was reading up on some interviews with you, and I did not know that you had a part of your life where you were in an evangelical church situation. And I'm curious how much doomsday, or the rapture figured into those conversations.
Yeah, my parents weren't super into end of the world doomsday stuff. They weren't preppers, but if you were even, I think, remotely part of the evangelical world in the 90s, as I was, certainly that was like peak Y2K,
Oh, yeah.
peak Left Behind series. Is that a cultural touch point you're familiar with?
Oh, yeah. In Virginia in the 90s, that was a big one, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, the first time I heard about the rapture or the second coming, it was so terrifying. It's like, I just thought the world was just going to keep going. I was aware of death, but this is a whole new thing. It could just end at any minute. And if you're not believing the right things or being good when that happens, then you kind of just deserve whatever punishment is coming to you. That's a pretty big stick for a kid, it's terrifying. And so it was really wonderful to leave that theology and worldview behind for so many reasons. But that was one of them. And yet there are times like when I was, really processing my climate anxiety and climate grief, where I was like, I feel like this is bringing up a lot of end of the world stuff for me. And so that was part of my work to unpack that. And it was interesting. I'd hear friends at youth groups say, oh, I hope I can do this or that, or study this, or go live here, or have this life experience before the world ends. We were just casually assuming that we were living in the end times.
Like it's curfew or something.
Yeah. At some point that's going to happen. And so I hope it doesn't ruin too much of my fun. But I think there's, some emerging research into youth mental health and some international polls that show really high percentages of young people fear the future and believe that humanity is doomed. And so I think it's very different reasons, comparing evangelical theology to an awareness of the climate crisis. But I do worry about what that means for kids developmentally.
Yeah. I remember in high school, we I guess I always had the end of the world as a scientific notion that was going to happen anyway. Our high school is gigantic and it has a planetarium in one of the courtyards. And we had this chemistry teacher who some bad boys in my class would torture all the time by just getting up and walking out of class and pulling the fire alarm because they were bored. And I swear he did this to us on purpose. But at the end of the year, we went to the planetarium to see this show, the space show, and it ended up being about how the sun was going to burn out one day and what would happen. We all came out very shaken and gray, and I was like, that was Doc Halstead's revenge on us, and we completely deserved it. But it is, it's a lot to grasp. It is a lot of scary shit that it's amazing that you would think kids would hold on to that. And also at the same time, I'm just reading this book right now about Rasputin and thinking back to, we're not even living in an era where kids would grow up and 10 of your 13 siblings would die in front of your house, in front of you. And you wouldn't even name the kid until
Like
they're
clockwork.
3 years old.
Right.
Yeah. Like
or you
would
just name them
expect
all
it.
the same name because you're like, there's going to be 7 Steves. Like, why would I get attached to 6 of these?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I pause for a second? Your high school had a planetarium. We had there was like a cage where people could smoke in the middle of ours. Fucking planet.
Yeah, no, our high school is just gigantic.
Shit.
It has 2 pools, 3 theaters. This is just when I was there. Over 6 gyms,
Oh
and it's
my
because it's
God.
gigantic. It's like the public high school.
Like
So
a university.
Yeah, I don't know if
Yeah.
it's just because it's the public. I mean, that's okay. Well, we're okay.
Well,
this
can I
this
just say,
explains a lot. Continue.
can I shout out a cool thing that they do now? They have a class called, it's like Geometry in Action or something like that. But basically, these kids build houses for Habitat for Humanity. And these kids will build an entire house and then they'll put it on a truck and go send it somewhere. And you see
That's
them
amazing.
being built, which,
I
it
don't
is
know why
really
that
cool.
requires a
So-
planetarium, but I think that's awesome.
Well, then we're going to go to Mars and look down at the planets. But this is the school that my kid is going to go to next year. So I'm excited for him and scared for
The
him.
same
and
one
all
you
those
went
things.
to.
Yeah. I mean,
Wow.
I know after COVID and school switching, I'm like, who knows? He may hate it and we go somewhere else. My dad has told me several times he would pay for them to go to private Catholic school. I don't want that but hopefully he'll enjoy it and have a great time. And we've been quietly seeding his social life over the last years where he knows kids from camp and teams and he's excited. So we'll see what comes of it. The school also has a daycare for the students who are parents as well, which I think is cool.
That's cool.
I mean,
Take the kids to the
Yeah.
planetarium. Caitlin, let's talk about judgment for a second. Have you read the new or even heard about the new George Saunders book, Vigil?
I haven't read it, but I've
Okay.
listened to a few interviews with him. I'm aware of it. Have you read it?
Yeah, I mean, he's fantastic. I've loved all his stuff, but I try to go into, this drives my kids crazy. I try to go into books and movies and stuff these days. If it seems like it's going to be good or it's a favorite author or creator of whatever kind, I'm like, I don't want to know. And so I went into this blind, not having any idea that it was so applicable, but you should check it out. It's fantastic because it really, in his typical incredibly potent and eloquent and often hit you over the head and often not, really examines these sort of what have we done with our time, judgment, apocalypse, the type of thing, is it meaningful at all for someone to repent at the end because they've already hurt somebody or whatever? It's very interesting. Anyways, that's the aside.
Can you remind me, is it a deathbed conversation or is it like an afterlife or is that a spoiler?
Yes.
Okay.
The answer is yes. Let's go with that. Let's
it.
go with that. It's only he could do it. It's so weird and fantastic. So anyways, let's talk about your book. Do your kids know you wrote a book?
They do.
They do.
Yes.
Do they know that they are like indirectly involved? Like they're part of the catalyst for you writing this?
No, they're not really aware of that part.
Interesting. How much have you talked with them out loud about, as you've developed these essays, like you said, that you've been writing these for so long and how that's evolved? Do these conversations you have with yourself and with the book extend at all to them? And do you bring that back in to the book at all? Again, knowing that they're very young, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, if you ask them, what is your mom's book about? I don't think that they would be able to give you a succinct pitch for it. They're not totally sure. I think they're aware that it's about climate change, but they haven't really been all that interested in it.
That
They're like
tracks.
excited that my picture is on the back of the book. They're like, that's our mom's book. Or they'll see it in the bookstore and that's a really fun moment for them. but they haven't asked me to read it to them or tell them more about it. I think they just think it's cool. They know about books, and
Yeah.
they're like, "It's cool that my mom wrote one." My daughter is lobbying for my next book to be called Baby Animal. She
Sure.
wants it to be like
Why not?
more animal focused. So I think there's a little bit more investment in my second book from my
Yeah,
That all
dedicated to her,
tracks.
not her
Claire,
brother.
your
Yeah.
boys talk about your book every day, right?
You know what? I gotta say, James is my younger son, and will give me the most hard time, but then will sort of surprise me with the most. I don't know. He's the one who had me read one of my books to him, and he enjoyed
Wow.
it. And he even said about one of the characters, he's like, "I like so and so. He's a good guy," and that was incredibly sweet to me, especially because my son is also kind of he's a big bro. He loves sports and throwing his body around. He doesn't have gal pals and things like that. But he loves books with girls on the cover. I don't know if he does that on purpose, but we Raina Talagar
Mm.
books, and so
Oh, yeah.
I like that aspect of it, and his book has illustration of girls on the cover, so they know. They haven't, like, quite read them, of course, but, I don't think they understand what it's like to write a book, because I'm kind of interested, Caitlin, in how much of a hard sell or not a hard sell it was to sell this book of essays, because selling a book is to a publisher is hard as shit, and it is
Yeah.
so beyond whether your book is well written, whether
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like, it's all about whether this book can sell and recoup the money for
Mhm.
the publisher. And so I'm curious about what the journey was to find a publisher and get it out there, and whether it was a hard sell at all.
I was really worried about that because I think in some ways it kind of had 3 strikes against it. It was like an essay collection, not a nonfiction book of parenting advice. An essay collection, I feel as a genre is kind of hard to sell. And then it was about climate change, which people aren't generally stoked to talk about or think about for obvious reasons. And then also coming at all of it from the perspective of a parent. And I think books that are about parenting and about sort of the existential side of it and what does all of this mean for me as a person are maybe a tougher sell than books that deliver like how to advice. And
Mm.
so, yeah, I didn't know how it would do, but it was also a book that I felt like I wanted. I early on as a parent, so 7 years ago, I had this full shelf of books that were, essays and anthologies about nature writing and climate change, and I just didn't feel like there was often stories of parenthood in those books or the perspective of people who are parenting young children and thinking about these things. And then conversely, in the parenting books that I was reading as a new parent, I wasn't seeing anything about, you know, climate change or sustainability except for,
Mm.
select titles. And I think now there are a lot more books that understand the intersections between those two topics. And I'm really glad that mine can be part of that conversation. There was a moment that felt really kind of just meant to be when I was querying agents for representation. My email to my now agent, Nicole Cunningham at Trellis, when she received it, she was like, a new parent, and New York City was covered in orange smoke from Canadian wildfires. And so she was feeling a lot of that parental climate anxiety. And I think that it's something that many parents feel deeply and talk about with their friends and care about.
Yeah.
And I do think there's an audience of people who are interested in it.
Well, I like that you also talk about green motherhood, like performative green motherhood. And I mean, that starts early, I think. I remember, when I think I was even pregnant, and you start talking about diapers and cloth diapers versus disposable diapers, and reacting extremely strongly to the idea of disposable diapers, to cloth diapers, because knowing deep down, I'm not strong enough to do that. Like, I can't do that. And then thinking, and then flipping it on its head. And that's just something I struggle with sometimes at the root of evil witches. And I think that's just part of like evil witches, is realizing that even the people who cloth diaper lose it on their kids sometimes, but just like
Oh,
feeling already less than, because we're
yeah.
already shitting this up so bad and being so basic and, and
Literally.
so talk a little bit about how you kind of thread that needle in the book and also in real life between the attempts we make versus the reality of it all. And also I'm curious as a backup too. Sorry, I'm gonna just like tack on, Joe. I want to know about the green dadhood aspect of that as well. But yeah, go off, Queen.
Hey. Yes. So I think that was one of the most exciting experiences of researching the book. There's an environmental ethicist, Sarah Jaquette Ray, who came up with the term third green shift, which builds on the second shift, which is, as you know, a term feminists use to name the unpaid household and caregiving labor that many working mothers and heterosexual relationships do after the workday. And so the third green shift names the work for what it is. It's the researching products and alternatives that are low toxin and that limit plastics and packaging waste. It's making and preparing foods in ways that minimize food waste. It's the cloth diapering. Many of these things are time intensive, labor intensive. There's a reason these are not convenience choices because they're difficult. They do not fit in easily, especially in a double income working family. And I really appreciated just naming that and how much more pressure parents are putting on themselves when they take on trying to address this planetary crisis by changing their own individual and household actions. And one of the researchers I spoke to, who is a maternal mental health researcher, Allison C. Davis, she has this really great paper called Untangling the Double Bind of Green Motherhood. And she's basically, this really doesn't help moms. And it doesn't actually really help the planet all that much, not as much as we would want it to. And then it also just in her paper, she unpacks how the pressure that new moms can feel. She has this great term, maternal eco distress, to name the kind of caring that new parents can experience for the planet and for their ecosystem. If it's not supported, like if those values aren't shared by friends and family, or if the household has a high degree of inequity in terms of the gendered split for household labor, those things can all complicate green motherhood. And it can lead to self-sacrificing behaviors, to burnout. It can be really bad for maternal mental health. And just naming that was so helpful, and recognizing that this is just another ideal of motherhood. Like the green motherhood is an ideal and it's impossible to live up to. And, it's funny to me, like when I'm thinking about the kind of efforts at sustainability we've made at our house, like none of our biggest wins have to do with me and my mothering or me and like
Mm,
my child labor. And
mm.
my husband and I are fairly equal in our partnership there. It's not our cooking and our cleaning and our parenting that has reduced our carbon impact. It's that we added solar panels to our house and we drive a small used EV, and we do a lot of bike. Like those are our biggest wins. We installed a heat pump. These are things that are expensive, and we've taken out loans to do them, but they're not parenting choices. And then a lot of our other choices have been made possible through public infrastructure. It's not us as individuals. It has a lot to do with the community that we live in, that we have curbside compost pickup, or that we've got really robust biking infrastructure and bike lanes that make it safe to bike to our neighborhood public school. Like these are not just choices that we're making as individuals.
I'm curious too about, I mean, maybe this feeds into it all. I was thinking of you, both of you guys yesterday, just literally walking by my son's room and his light was on and he was God knows where out of the house. And I was just thinking of the fork in the path of I can leave this on and yell at, in my family, yelling means anytime you say something remotely critical. So yelling does
Mhm.
not always mean a raised voice, but yell at him about going to turn off the light or just turn it off myself. and save the money and save myself the energy. But am I teaching, am I just enabling him then to be another white man letting a woman clean up his mess and, save the planet for him? I know not that, but I'm just curious whether you get nagging fatigue when maybe your kids never need to be nagged. If they don't, I don't want to hear about it actually. But, is
Have a
that
nice
part
day.
of it for you?
I feel like we have just reached the stage of parenting where our kids are capable of so much, and they are also capable of so much ignoring. It's like
Mm.
we just are repeating ourselves
Mhm.
all the time. Like
With
even for
great power comes like neglected responsibility left and right.
it is amazing. It's like even for nice things. Like I could be like, would anybody like me to get you a drink of water? Would you like a drink of water? Would you like me to bring you a drink of water? I'll bring you something very nice. And they're just like, I mean, I feel like I could offer candy sometimes, and they would just, I mean, no, they would hear me if it was candy. But
I offer to wipe my son's glasses off because his glasses are always
Yeah.
so smeared. And I'm like, do you want me to? No. And then when I do it, I say, your girlfriend will never do this for you, just so you know. But, and then I'm like, again, like, here comes like the niceness with the slap in the face at the same time. So, but that's honestly, Kaitlyn, I need to hear that. Like, it's a relief that you're not raising like green angels.
No, I mean, right now, I think our biggest issue is food waste. It's just like we are just plates full of food into the compost all the time. It's
Yeah.
like, what they're into changes all the and I'm trying not to, I just want them to have a good relationship with food in their bodies. That's my biggest value moment. And we'll get there with the rest of it, maybe.
Have you tried making your own bubblegum flavored pop? Have you, maybe try that on the homestead as the trad wives do?
That's right.
No, never
That's right.
tried it.
That's what we're aiming for here.
Quinn, don't you get tired of nagging too? Like, when do you give up? I don't know if you have if you're like, I'll just do this for them, or I'm just gonna let it go.
Claire,
or we're just
all
gonna
we
throw
do is
this
send each
away.
other pictures of our kids' shit all over the house. So the answer is one, it's again the barbell. I have both completely given up, but I will also hunt them through the house now. We used to be like, oh, we've got one with ADHD and she's worried about this. I'm like, I will stop you mid-pee to tell you to go get your fucking socks off the living room table because I have already asked and they're not supposed to be there and I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not doing it. And my wife is 100% not going to pick them up for you. We're not responsible. Go do your shit. But then there's other times where they're like, I forgot my water bottle. I'm like, good luck. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I've bought you so many hundreds of dollars that has your name. You put your stickers on it. We can only remind you, like you said, would you like a glass of water? Would you like, don't forget your water bottle. Don't forget to put some ice in. It's going to be warm today. And then the next phase, when they say like Claire said, we're yelling at them, which is just instructing them. When I say, don't forget it, and they do, that's it. I'm out.
Yeah.
Sorry. I did everything I could. We had one moment where my daughter and I were playing at some playground. And the number of times I told them all, bring their water bottles. And she just, sometimes she'll forget it out of spite. I have this. This goes everywhere with me. It says, Dad, all the things. You can pick it out from 100 miles away.
Love it.
And it's always full. It's always full. It's got ice and the kids can hear when there's water. And I was drinking and she goes, I forgot mine. Can I have some of yours? I said, you can't. And the look on her face, she was so upset. And I was like, clearly you're not going to listen. This is the equivalent of putting your hand on the stove. I want you to know this is delicious. And I'm enjoying it. And I remembered to do it. And I don't always remember. She came home and told my wife, and my wife was like, Jesus Christ. But I was like, she's got to learn because they cannot come home and make it my problem. Go, I'm mad because I didn't drink water all day. I'm like, that's a choice you made. You're not 4 and 7 anymore, guys. I don't know what to tell you.
Funny. My algorithm has shown me, like, this is so on topic. Like, I have gotten served at least 2 different videos about moms being regretful or refusing to share a water bottle with a child. And so this is definitely
deal with
like
it. Also, I don't want their backwash shit in here. This is the most important thing in my life. There's food in their water. I don't want that.
This woman caught a video. She caught on video her son sneezing or coughing while he was drinking from her water bottle. So you see the spew. Because I like to pretend backwash isn't a thing. Sometimes I need to, I'm not that precious. Sometimes if I see a hair in a food, I'm like, I can deal with it. But seeing the spew, you're like, there's no. I have
Once
a
you see
question for
that,
both of you. This is truly a household thing that I like, one of my bugaboos. How do you guys clean your kids' water bottles and how often?
how often do I clean them?
Any of you, how do you do it? They just sit next to the sink
Oh,
until something happens. Sometimes I've thrown them away. I'm like, well, you know what?
I mean, I don't know if I'm admitting to something that the internet will hate me for, but I just put their hydro flasks in the dishwasher. Are we not supposed to do that?
Who cares? That's what I do.
Does that work?
No, here's the thing. Two different answers, Claire. I will not clean their shit up for them. But I will, if they leave it out at night, I'm putting it in the dishwasher and you're welcome. It doesn't have whatever the current virus is. No. But
I
I'm not
kinda
going to find it for them.
I have a horror story about water bottles.
Please.
You know those like sippy cups with the 360 lids that kind of like suction down?
Mm-hmm.
Like those are typically what's like their bedtime water bottles. And one time my kid was, this tastes gross. Can you get
Uh-oh.
me, if it's been a while, have you ever picked up, it is gross. There's a reason the water tastes.
100%. And you know if they're saying it's gross, that you've
Yeah.
crossed a line. Because they'll
It's
drink
a really
anything.
bad. You're like, I'll deal with this
Uh,
immediately.
Mhm.
Right. I'm sure.
I have no control over the water bottle situation in our house. They are coming in from God knows where because they'll go to some festival and some insurance company will be giving away these plastic water bottles and they'll take them. And and then again, here I am at the crossroads of, I can't immediately throw this away, but also I'm like, this probably is not as healthy as a glass or steel water bottle. But now here I am faced with the trash and then they drink it and then they leave it by the sink. And I don't want to hassle them because I also don't trust their ability to wash it correctly. But also, are you putting this plastic in the dishwasher? So it just sits there for weeks. And
That's one of my no's.
so,
Just like we're not buying plastic water.
but I don't
Yeah.
have a choice. It shows up.
Yeah.
Like that's
Well, that's part of the
Yeah.
independence. But they can't make if it's in the house, like I'm tossing it. I'm not gonna, we're not gonna like reuse that. I didn't buy them all a fucking clean canteen so that we can reuse those things.
I feel like you have a hierarchy of water bottles because in my mind, I'm like, these are the ones that kind of leak a little. And so that would be
We-
okay for you to lose. So you can take it to this riskier environment.
Right. So you are entering the phase where you got to get ruthless about that and just cut out. If it's leaking, it's out of here. We're not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's just going to be it's a problem you're going to deal with. It's like my wife, who's so busy and successful and hardworking and the most incredible mom and partner, all this. And sometimes I'll lean over her shoulder and see her dismiss like an iPhone notification. It's like, you're out of space. And instead of dealing with it, she just hits dismiss. And I finally was like,
Oh, yeah.
that is going to keep coming back until you just take 30 seconds to do it. And she's like, but I don't have it. I was like, but it's eating away your life and your life force. And that's what a leaking water bottle is. Just, nope, out of
Wow.
here. You failed.
That's deep. I have these nice water bottles that are like glass and has a silicone cover on it. And my son was mad, my younger son, because he wanted to put something in the fridge and there wasn't room for it. And I just had mine in there. And he suggested that I keep my water bottles on the countertop. It is selfish for
Oh.
me to keep them cold because
Oh.
I need to keep them for him in the fridge. So my other thing I'm working on is with my older son. He has this habit lately of taking dishes to the sink, but not going the extra mile and putting them in the dishwasher. And he's more receptive to this kind of stuff than the younger one. But I'll say, and this is, I feel like witchy, I'll say, Paul, when you leave these things next to the sink and don't put them in the dishwasher, it's sending a message that some invisible person who's less important than you will put that away. And I know you don't think that, right? And so I'm trying to like slightly guilt him, we'll see. I
Oh, I
mean,
love
he
that.
hears it at least. Yeah.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
what are your kids going to do this summer? What do you have planned for them or what do they not have planned?
Yeah, they're in a lot of summer camps. That's what
Okay.
we do. Both my spouse and I work, and we don't have grandparents nearby. Both of my parents worked growing up, but we kind of had a mix of grandparent care and then very 90s era relaxed teenage child babysitter. You're like,
Yeah.
at what point can I just hire a 12-year-old to hang out with my kids? I don't know. And so they're going to a mix of, outdoor camps and camps with the Y and different different arts organizations in town that host summer camps. We did do the thing with my 7-year-old, my daughter, who has more camp options just because of her age, where we tried to sync up with other families who have a similar childcare situation. So it's like she's going to a bunch of random camps, but she'll have friends at every camp. And then my son goes to a preschool that also offers a summer camp. So he'll be
Love that.
there, which for him is nice. At 4,
Yeah.
it's nice to have the routine and the stability
con-
of familiar place, familiar friends, familiar teachers. Occasionally he'll do a camp with his sister, but it's the 7-year-old. But I'm staring down how our schedule is really going to change every week. Different,
Mhm.
slightly different pickups,
Nothing
slightly different
stresses out my
drop-offs.
wife more.
I call it the
Like-
patchwork quilt of summer activities.
Oh,
and
yeah.
staying on. That's why
That's
I'm
no idea.
I'm hammering always this. This is like a pre-promo, I guess. I have a family advisor. I call
Here
her
it
my
comes.
calendar lady.
I'm ready to hear from it.
You know what? No, I have a code. Actually, I'll drop it in.
Yep,
To put it
there
in
it
there
is.
for people who listen.
Yep.
But I believe very much in this scope creep of the calendars and appointments that's
Yeah.
on moms. That's very unfair. And last year or earlier this year, I hired a woman to help me anytime I get anything that involves calendar or scheduling or remembering.
Yeah.
And I just shoot it to her because I can't keep it all in my brain. I could not find a way to get this work done in an intelligent way. I was dropping the ball. So this amazing lady has helped with all the camp forms. She's been helping my son sign up for they have a summer school at the high school that kind of actually just tours you around the high school. She got him set up for that. It's so
Cool.
amazing to just have some help because it just creeps up on you. And the summer stuff, remembering today is 9:30 drop off. Next week it's 10 drop off. They have lunch this day. They don't have lunch this day. Make, field trip, sunscreen, all of that. Like it is impossible to keep in one's head. And I think it's like moms, especially, sorry, Quinn, dads too, but mostly
No,
moms.
I
think,
know
like,
I am the unusual one here. I'm fully
Yeah.
with it. It is 95% on moms. The dads
Yeah.
who electively or for whatever situation carry this shit is rare. I'm proud to do it. I started off doing it because I like logistics and event stuff, but also because my wife was carrying the entire show. And we had 3 kids in 3 years, and my job was to do everything else. And that's great. And also I'm just like slightly better at it, and she's better at 9 million other things, but it still stresses her out because my kids make it her problem every time. Even though they
Really?
know the invites, they get a birthday party invitation, and either they don't give it to a parent or they give it to mom, even though 7 million times they have been told they need to give it to me because mom does not have time to look at the calendar or do all this shit. They will be like, well, mom forgot about the birthday. And that is when I lock them outside because that
Yeah.
shit is not okay. And they know that.
I love it.
Do you get
Great,
treated
solid
like a
writing.
unicorn often still, Quinn? Do people be like, wow, good for you, you're like parenting? Do you still, or everyone knows you enough by now to be like, Quinn does this stuff?
Well, I don't hang out with people, so there's no one to give me credit or throw sticks. Again, this quite literally is my social life. Yeah, no, I try to equalize it everywhere I can. If I do
Yeah.
interact with other human beings, I'm just like, yeah, that's the deal. My wife's incredible. Like, why the hell should she be bothered with what Spirit Week day is today? She should just be
Yeah.
the one who gets to wake up late and be excited that they're dressed like a fucking firecracker today, And if they forgot,
We
guess
just
what?
happen to
They
stay
can
awake.
throw that at me, but I'm like, I don't care. I can put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
You can see it. That's your job now. Yeah, I honestly, the biggest fight is truly in our house, which is me versus them not putting it on her. And she will, because she's the greatest person alive, will 100% be like, oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't. I'm like, I understand, but we can't do that shit, man.
Yeah. Kaitlyn,
Okay.
I'm just curious because I also have an older daughter with a younger brother, and I'm curious how your kids are getting along these days.
Oh, well, it's good until it's not good. They'll be like playing peacefully.
That's it.
And then it's like game over. They have a time limit. I'm not really sure what it is that goes off where they're like, and now we fall apart. But it does happen. And sometimes I'm like, do you hear how you're talking to each other? I would be so annoyed if someone,
Yeah.
every time they said my name, was like, okay. can you speak to each other in ways that are like, ooh. But yeah, no. That's like honestly what takes a lot more of the parental involvement in supervision these days is not so much that they're like inherently doing dangerous things because they have a pretty good sense of like risk around the house, but it's like stepping in to kind of cool the temperature or yeah. And sometimes it's like I think they like to fight. You're
Oh
like,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
y-
Oh yeah.
you could also move your body. Or it
Yeah.
seems like,
I'm going
you
to.
know,
But why?
if
Yeah.
you're really wanting to not be messed with, you could take this activity elsewhere.
You have a sister, right? You have more siblings than that, or just the two of you?
It's just the two of us. Yeah.
Okay. So, and is it very different with the boy and the girl than it was with the two sisters growing up?
Not that I can tell so much yet, but I mean, parenting my son has been pretty different so far from parenting my daughter. And I don't know how much to attribute to gender or just I have two different kids and they're just two different kids with two different interests. But in terms of the age gap between my sister and my two kids is almost exactly the same. 3 years and 3
Mm.
weeks. Completely
Okay.
incidentally. So yeah,
Interesting.
I mean, we'll see as they move forward. Definitely, I think if you asked my younger sister and my son, maybe there would be some similarities where it's like everybody knows him as like almost little brother. And oh yeah, they're always doing the thing where they're like, how are you alike or not like the child that we already know from your family? Which I think is probably a classic younger sibling thing to face.
I literally told my daughter this the other day. She's headed to middle school next year with my older son. And I was like, oh, what are you nervous about this? And she goes, I'm nervous about being known as his sister. I was like, it is a rite of passage. Everyone with a sibling has been through it. And you're lucky he's pretty great. But also do your own thing. She's the one who showed up. She was probably 3 and he was 5 in preschool. And it was her first year in the school. And he was 5-year-old on campus, like their little dirt campus. And she walked in the first day and told everyone it was his birthday and just would sing happy birthday to him. And she was punking him minute one, day one at his own school. She was like, I'm the captain now.
That's
So
great, though.
it was
That's
pretty
hilarious.
incredible. He came home and he was just like, she fucked up my whole thing. I was like, yeah.
My son has always, like from the very start, been a wonderful sharer with his sister, which I really appreciate. If I'm like slicing apples or like making a treat, he's always, can I bring one to Alma? He's always, can I bring one to Alma? Or like,
That's really sweet.
That's nice.
if we're at Trader Joe's and they're like handing out suckers, like, can I bring one home for my, and I will say that's a very sweet thing that I see.
I was just curious, Kaitlyn, and I know it's more nuanced than that, but when I get into my feelings in my head, I still think, God, you're such a piece of shit, Claire. Be more like this. And I was reading about your efforts to be more sustainable and, reading about your garden. I don't garden. I think it's just my mom gardens. So therefore, I'm like, fuck that. But a Cup of Joe and Big Salad, people, Quinn, I'm not sure how familiar you are with these, but they're very beloved publications, and Kaitlyn works. You're the managing editor, editorial director with both of them. What is your
Senior editor for Big Salad.
Senior editor? Yeah. And so I just want to know, like, I was having a bad week despite my attempts to block myself and make myself not want to be online, of refreshing Reddit, basically looking for the new thing, for the new ping. And I want to know how you do your job and then shut it down and get outside without getting sucked into it all. And like, I was just reading about Trump comparing the height of the Sears Tower to the Empire State Building. And, and I was like, I was just swimming in the lake an hour ago and now I'm all mad about this. So tell me your secrets.
Yeah, I mean, I think like everybody, I'm still trying to figure it out. I will say I regularly delete Instagram from my phone. Like
Relatable.
I use Instagram for work if I'm scouting photos for an issue or preparing for an interview with someone. I will be like all up and down their grid, but I try to keep that on my Chrome browser and not on my phone. And then if I have to post something, that's a phone activity. So I'll like re-download the app, do my post, and then delete it again. So that's one strategy. Like I would love to just see the amount of times that I've downloaded and reinstalled Instagram. It's constant. It's like several times in one day sometimes. But then I think we spend a lot of time outdoors as a family, not as like a pressure of something we feel we have to do, but it's just something that my spouse and I share and our kids share is something that we enjoy. So like just this past weekend, we went camping with a bunch of friends, which is one of our favorite things to do in the summer is we just get as many families as possible to book up a campground. And then it feels like one huge like sleepover hangout the entire weekend.
Mhm.
And it
Mm.
sounds exhausting, but with so many other kids and so many other parents, it's like they form a pack and they just run around the campground. And there's always other parents to offer snacks and mac and cheese and juice boxes and sunscreen. And you end up just feeling like you're doing less and your kids are getting more. And it's very fun. But we didn't go far. It was like 40 minutes away, kind of up the mountain, but we didn't have service all weekend. And so I ended up coming away from those weekends like with not as many photos as I'd like because my phone isn't always right on me. But it's very nice to
Just
spend
your
a weekend
memories.
with service. It's
That
so great.
and that's a smart tip. My husband and I did a little camping before the kids were born, and then he wanted to take them camping, and I was like, I can't honestly handle the idea of having no doors between me and my kid at all hours. And
Oh,
so
sure.
he'll take the kids camping, and then someone has to stay home with the dog. And so I just I feel guilty because I say yes, but also it's really hard for me to turn down my alone time. Like I need my cone of silence as the
Yeah.
only girl in the house sometimes. So, but doing it with the big family sounds, or at the big group of families, I know it is amazing when the kids will watch themselves.
Being outside, spending time outside, I have told Claire, and I've said before here, of all the work I've done the past, whatever, 8 years through all this, I think the most important 15 minutes to me was, judging by my shirt, it was like a 14-minute phone call with Sesame Street about like, how do we talk to 3-year-olds about climate change? And they will never remember who I was, anything like that. But obviously Sesame Street means so much to me and my kids too. And I'm not sure
Yeah.
if you're familiar, but since when we grew up, I think it's about 20 years ago, they shifted from 3 to 4-year-olds to 2 to 3-year-olds, or it was 4 to 5 to 3 to 4. And that, as you know, with 4-year-old, that's a big difference. And there were a couple of other folks on the call and we basically were like, you just talk about relationships with your yard, if you have one, any green space, a place you
Yeah.
go, a flower,
Yeah.
watch how it changes, or animals, or with weather, or your favorite tree. You have to start with something they can attach themselves to if they are lucky enough to have access to something like that. If not, try nature documentaries, whatever. But that is, I feel like, the most fundamental thing, and why I love that idea of camping with a bunch of people and stuff. Let them have their independence and find a stream and do whatever. You don't have to hit them over the head with it. The thing we do try to hit them over the head with, and this is sort of a choose your own adventure, and I understand why people are less likely to do this. So I don't know if you know, my other job, the full-time thing is the media side of this and this all the civic tech stuff. We have this site literally called whatcanido.earth. And it
I
is for
love that.
people who are like, what the fuck am I supposed to do? And we've got all this crazy
Mhm.
research and very rigorous actions, any different way you want to show up.
Mhm.
Because most of the stuff you were told is not real or not measurable. But at the same time, we're also big believers with social science, which, take any science study and you can pick it apart now, but we are very social people. And so if people come over and they're like, shit, those nice, non nightmare cleaning products actually work, then they might choose those, right? They might. That little thing does matter.
Mhm.
I know that's not measurable. But what it does is it puts a foot in the door. And eventually, what you will find once your kids get older is it's really fun to then kick the door down and tell them that it's 20% green, this green parenting responsibility thing that we don't have time for, and 80% this is being done to you, kids,
Right.
by power and systems and the same
Yeah.
people who are both on the public side and the private side, who have no interest in whether you choose the clean stuff. And you talked about I can't remember if it was one of the essays or something on your blog, which I know they interweave, but talking about how in the global north and the west, we're much closer to the causes than we are to the effects. But you're in the Pacific Northwest, I believe. The effects are here, obviously.
Yeah.
a little later than a lot of places and a little different, but fully unprepared for it, like so many places. But just being here, and we don't choose where we're born, but we do have a huge responsibility, obviously, being in the global North and West. Obviously, moms and parents who can't afford childcare of any kind or choosing between rent and air conditioning shouldn't have to.
Sure.
But if we are at all capable, knowing where to aim is very helpful. That's part of why we built this, but also we have tried to basically break this cycle with our kids of them thinking like, oh, we've got to recycle. I'm just like, it's not fucking real. Here's what you can do, and here's what is being done, and why. And we want to expose you to that so they can see through the cracks of this is totally crazy. It's totally crazy. These things don't need to be made out of this. We don't need to rely on this. As our good friend of the pod, Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson, world's greatest marine biologist, says, she's like, we got all the shit. We don't have to invent anything new. We know how to do everything. It is just a matter of will. And that will is usually more informed people not being led astray. And again, like as my kids have gotten older, it has become, hey, we're going to make good choices at home because we care about our bodies and because we have friends over that's semi-social, but mostly you need to understand the structures that are doing this, because as you ask for a phone, as you participate in this, as you go online, you are being dissuaded, being disillusioned of these things immediately, so much more than we ever were, right? Like ours was like, this is your brain on drugs, here's a couple scrambled eggs. Turns out we don't actually know anything about marijuana because we've never been allowed to study it, right? Their world is so different and so much more a disinformation complex. So that is our version of, anyways, this is just my version of if climate change is everything, like Claire said, you know, whether it's public health or whatever, we're constantly trying to go them, this is why, and this is how we got here, and the way to get to a greener place. You mentioned the Eight of the Twist Scientist at one point, the show where they show both versions, like one side's Terminator and the other side's not. It's like, we know what to do, but, and it's not your job, kids. It's definitely our job, but you should know why mom and I are making the choices we're making, and we expect you to make similar ones. So your 4-year-old is not there yet, but that's how we go from relationships with trees and plants in a clover garden to you don't actually have to have a green lawn, and here's why.
Yeah, I mean, I actually think that that is maybe the case for making individual and household level changes, is just to have those conversations with your kids about why you make the choices that you do and why it's important to live in ways that align with your values and the way that you would see the world heading. You know, I'm critical of green motherhood, but I've also made tons of swaps in our house, and I explain those to our kids, like, this is why we have kind of ratty cloth napkins that we like at every dinner, and we just wash them instead of, you know, more paper towel. Or this is why we buy the toilet paper that we buy that's made of bamboo. Or, you know, even more so, my 4-year-old, he loves cars and trucks and things that go. He is just a vehicle and wheels kid. And so trying to explain to him, well, this is why we drive a Leaf instead of a, you know, an F-150. Here's why. And then, you know, he's, well, but what about a Cybertruck? And I'm like, well, that's a whole different conversation.
How much time do you have, kid?
Yeah, we are always explaining to our kids why we, you know, are buying our clothes secondhand, or why we are saying no to this or that or the other thing. And I think in terms of their ability to conceptualize different climate futures, the language that we use with them is very much along the lines of Dr. Ayanna Elizabeth Johnson's, where she says, we have the solutions. There are just people who make a lot of money off of not implementing them and make a lot of money off of the problems. And, you know, why we vote for the people that we vote for and the policies that we vote for. We went to our local No King rally and framed that in terms of a bunch of different values that we have. And
you're just saying this is who we are. You know, again, is it a drop in the ocean? Sure. If you want to be reductive and see it that way, measurably, sure. but might that implant in them like this idea of these are just the choices we make because we're deciding to, and hopefully that'll lead you to do more constructive things.
And I love what you said at the first part of your reflection, which was like prioritizing relationship, because I think sometimes we have this sense that to talk about relationships is kind of like a soft skill of
Mm.
climate solutions. It's touchy-feely, it's warm, but I think there's a way in which we can think about, well, what are our ethical relationships to our neighbors, to our community, to our ecosystem, to the plants and animals and non-humans that we share our bioregion, our watershed with. Like I really want kids who can think ecologically about those relationships in ways that are nuanced and complex. And Allison C. Davis, who's the maternal mental health researcher I mentioned earlier, she talks about how important it is to see ourselves in relationship with the natural world and that we are also being cared for by it.
Sure.
And we are not just the only actors in our ecosystem doing bad things, but things are being done to us. So sure, there's the political element of the people in charge who are doing things to us, but there are also so many good things being given to us from our ecosystem. And we're just part of this really interconnected web. And yeah, I think as our kids get older, it becomes important to help them see those relationships as our circle widens, and the relationships that are maybe harder to conceptualize but are just as important, like our relationship in the global north to parents and kids and families that are growing up in the global south and for whom the effects of climate change have been here and have been terrible and are unfair and unjust.
And again, you can be as ruthless with your family and your family situation as you want, but we, when it's a really hot day, we try to explain to them in fairly brusque terms, because I find that the longer I go, the less they pay attention. Hey, just so
Sure.
you know, there's probably 3 kids in your class who didn't have air conditioning. I just want you to think about when you're at school today when somebody,
Oh yeah.
that's what's up, and just trying to build those pieces of understanding that, and then if they ask questions, I'll go, would you like to know why it was so hot, or
Yeah.
in December or whatever it might be. And again, we do actually try to protect their childhood as much as we can, but we are also very invested in them understanding, again, like how everyone is affected, but also active voice, like being affected, and their role and their place in trying to undo that. Do they hate my 5-minute showers for them with a vengeance? Of course. And they're like, we're not going to run out of water. I was like, no, of course not. But why should you get to do these and nobody else did? There are kids in town getting their water shut off because their parents work 2 jobs the same hours that mom and I do, and it doesn't mean anything. So I don't know. Is it the right way to do it? I don't know. But I always come back to relationships. I find it's helpful, and you can define it in a lot of different ways. So
That's beautiful.
I don't know, but thank you. But I try. And Claire, I know you, like when you guys had ice all over Chicago, it was similar. You were like, my kids aren't getting taken, but it was literally down the block from you,
Yeah. Yes. That was frightening for sure. But also heartening that when we walked over to see what was going on, so many people I knew were there in the same way, and just the outrage that we shared. But I felt good where we lived that we could, take action like that. So
Of course, you don't want to have to, but you're glad that that's how everyone showed up when they had to.
I have an idea for you, Kaitlyn, that you can absolutely ignore. I've been doing some interviews lately with people who have newsletters, who do spin-off newsletters just for fun. And your Substack is called Oh Good. And so if you ever want a salty, spin-off, I think you should just call it Oh God. So that's my idea for you.
Well, I feel like oh good can be ambiguous. I often find myself, oh good. Great.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's how I feel about the beach party after school tomorrow that just crept up on us. Oh, good.
Good.
Head to notrightnow.show for more, or send us feedback, questions, horror stories, doxing, whatever it is, at questions@notrightnow.show.